All right, good evening, everybody. So our friend David Barnes, Zol Gesundsein, he should be well. He's asking about the teaching of ivrit in the modern Orthodox schools. He said interested to learn that when he's taught in the modern Orthodox school, religious Zionist school, he taught science, that they taught modern Hebrew, ivrit, in the modern Orthodox school. And he was surprised to learn that in the ultra-Orthodox schools, the Haredi schools, they do not teach ivrit, modern Hebrew. And he asked, is it my opinion that in the modern Orthodox schools they should not be teaching ivrit, and it shouldn't be taught at all, etc. Now, it's a very nuanced and complicated question. Obviously, according to the Satmarov, it's totally prohibited to learn the modern ivrit. He said he made it akin to prostrating oneself in front of an idol. He said it's better to prostrate in front of an idol 100 times in a day than to learn the modern Hebrew, they call it ivrit, for even one moment. And in one of the Satmar shuls in Williamsburg, I don't know if the sign is still there, but there was a sign there that said that you're not allowed to speak ivrit inside of the shul. Not allowed to speak that language. And I know Sephardic Jews. I remember the Chacham Reuven Elbaz, Rosh Hashiva, came to speak in Queens, and I used to spend a lot of time in his presence. Didn't really talk to him much, but I used to daven in the same minyan with him a lot when I learned in Yerushalayim. And I don't remember who it was who was introducing him, but I remember the Sephardic rabbi. He got up and he said, "Anachnu medabrim b'lashon hakodesh v'lo be'ivrit, ze machshu acher." He said, we're speaking in the sacred language and not in ivrit because this is something different. There's a difference between Lashon HaKodesh and ivrit. And one of those examples out of many would be this example, the made-up word Chanukiah. That's what the discussion was about. Other words are holy words that are misused in modern ivrit, right? The two examples that are bolet, that really stand out. One is Agadah. Agadah in Lashon HaKodesh, in our holy Hebrew, means the portions of the Talmud that are non-legal. And so therefore they are ethical teachings, homiletical teachings, and not legal teachings. And some of the homilies might include things that might be, in the Jungian sense, considered to be mythological. But I mean that in a positive way, meaning there's something very sublime and deep and holy about our Agadah. In modern ivrit, the term Agadah means a fairy tale. The negative connotation of the term myth. A fantasy, right? I forgot one of the Zionist founders, I don't remember if it was Ben Gurion or Herzl, Yimach Shemam V'Zichram. There was the famous quote, it says, right, Im tirtzu zu lo agadah, right? If you have the will, if there's a will, there's a way, you could do what you want, but ein zu agadah. It's not a fairy tale. That's the way that, meaning, to say like that, it's an insult to our religion. To use a holy term like agadah for something negative is an open and direct insult to the Jewish religion. Another example is chashmal. Chashmal is a very holy secret, some sort of an angelic manifestation that is mentioned in the book of Ezekiel. The Talmud warns not to delve too much into what is chashmal, because there was a child who was a prodigy, and he delved into the study of what is this angel, this angelic manifestation called chashmal, and the chashmal came and took him away. So that was presented as a warning. So we see it's a very holy, sublime mystery. Is this chashmal? Now, I believe the King James Bible or other English Bibles, they translate chashmal as electrum. So based on this, the modern ivrit, the word for electricity is chashmal. The Haredim in Eretz Yisrael, even if they speak Hebrew, they try to avoid using the word chashmal for electricity. They'll use like a Yiddish word, electric. So they won't, like you'll see, in Meir Sharim, if there's an electrician, he doesn't say tzarchei chashmal, but they say tzarchei electric. Because it's an insult. Maybe that's not as much of a direct, intentional insult, but nonetheless it's an insult to our religion to call something mundane like electricity by a sublime name like chashmal. So if you look at the art scroll Tanakh, in the Chumash on the Haftarah for Shavuos, it doesn't say electrum, it just says chashmal. Transliterated, CHASHMAL, something like that. Because it's understood that this is not something that's meant to be translated. With that being said, the high school I attended, we learned ivrit. And I remember arguing with the teacher, why do we have to learn the modern ivrit, even at that time? And I had some Zionist tendencies when I was in high school, but nonetheless I said, I don't want to learn the modern ivrit. I want to learn Lashon HaKodesh so I can learn Gemara, so I can learn Mishnayos. The answer they said to me was, when we were learning English, we're not being taught to, or if someone's learning English as a second language, right? They're not going to teach them to read like Shakespeare. They're going to teach them to read to read and speak like Shakespeare, but rather read and speak like we do today. That was the answer they gave us. And so since in Israel, the populace, they speak this ivrit, it's valuable for that reason. Now the real answer as to why we learned ivrit was because at that time in New York State regents, there was a regents test on foreign language. So when I was in public school, we were learning Spanish, right? And so probably when I finished that, I would take the regents in Spanish. But you had options of which foreign language you wanted to study, and which foreign language you wanted to take a regents test in. And so one of the options was Hebrew, which was obviously the modern Israeli Hebrew as it's spoken today. And I remember it was a very easy, silly kind of test. Ani wrote set pizza. It was very, very easy. It was probably from all the Regents tests. This is over 20 years ago. But from all the Regents tests, 20, 21, 22, 23 years ago, something like that, all the Regents tests we took, probably the easiest one was the one on ivrit. So I'm assuming, I'll be done on Kafschus, that in New York State, a lot of schools, even some that were maybe leaning toward the Haredi, light, not, the more cloistered type Haredi, but the type of Haredi schools that offer a Regents test, of which there are many, they might have been offering ivrit, so toward the Regents, and so that was the reason why it started. And even though New York State no longer gives a Regents test on ivrit, some of the schools kept doing it and some of the schools stopped. Now the question is, should the modern Orthodox schools teach ivrit, yes or no? That's none of my business. I'm not modern Orthodox. Although I probably have one foot in modern Orthodoxy and one foot in ultra Orthodoxy, when it comes to this question, I lean, even though in other things I certainly lean maybe even to the left of modern Orthodoxy, but when it comes to this question in particular, personally, I lean toward the more cloistered, I wouldn't say extreme, I don't like that term extreme, and I don't think it's more extreme, but the more cloistered anti-Zionist ultra-Orthodox, for various reasons. And that's really, this visceral feeling about ivrit. I feel it's something. But on the other hand, if you have a tool that that's useful, and I'll tell you, my Rebbe, Kalaver Rebbe Shlita, Shab Bigrufu Shlema, I used to translate his Divrei Torah into English, right? And I every now and then there would be a word there in ivrit, and I had a hard time. I have to put it into Google Translate, and I'd realize it's just a transliteration into English. And then once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I knew what it was, but I had to put into Google. Once in a while, I have a word, I put into Google Translate. It's like, oh, that's what it is. It's so obvious I couldn't even sound it out sometimes. But anyway, and I asked, why is it like this? And they didn't get an answer. But the answer was, the Rebbe soll gesund sein. He should have bigger for Shlema. Moshe ben Rezel should have bigger for Shlema. He has Lou Gehrig's disease, and he has a computer kind of like Lahavdil that what's his name had, the professor from England, Stephen Hawking, had a computer that read his eye movement, and he would say, or something. So Rebbe reads the eye movement, and it's from Israel, so it writes in ivrit, but you can teach it words, or you can spell out words. So after a while, he started to use Yiddish words for, words that don't exist in Lashon HaKodesh. And then it was easier to figure out, because it's, especially, writing it in a Yiddish manner, for, to be written, but an English word, it's very easy to understand. So anyway, that's the, so I understand that the value, and I'll be honest. So my kids, they're interested in learning different languages, and one of my kids, I said, one of my kids is using Duolingo to learn Spanish, and I said, and the other one is using Duolingo to learn Yiddish, even though she goes to Yiddish-speaking school, she feels she can brush up on her Yiddish. And the one who's learning Spanish, who knows Yiddish perfectly and speaks very fluently in Yiddish, she's younger. I told her maybe to do the Duolingo in ivrit, because it'll teach her enough lashon hakodesh. But the problem is, of course, the bad words that they added, the fake words that are problematic. But beyond that, obviously, it's 95% the same language as lashon hakodesh. Although there's certain other issues with the grammar and things, nonetheless. But in any event, that's the. So I'm not. So I'm mostly have the problem with these modern words, like, and especially a word like Chanukia. And that's the story. So thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and we'll see you later. And I'll tell you, traditionally, I'll say something else. Traditionally, when there was words, there was no word in lashon hakodesh for, we would write them in Yiddish style. Even you see in the hundreds of years ago, that was the way things were done. And the other thing is, when writing names that are not lashon hakodesh, there's rules about that are different between lashon hakodesh and Aramaic and Yiddish and so forth. And one big thing is that Aramaic names do not end with a hey; they end with an aleph if it's an a at the end, and lashon hakodesh ends with a hey. And the same thing with Yiddish. You don't have, if it ends with a vowel sound or you put an aleph, or if it's you put ayin. You don't put a hey. And part of the reason is that lashon hakodesh is kodesh, so you have the hey of Hashem's name, whereas lashonos shel chol, secular languages like Yiddish and Aramaic, even if they're written b'ksav ashuris, nonetheless, you use an aleph instead of the hey to show the secular nature of those languages. So, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and we'll see you later. How do I turn this thing off? You have a shirt tonight? Yeah.